Big welcome to everyone again to our Resilience in Business and Life in a Changing World, session number 5 in September. Footy finals, and what a great grand final it was. The D's victorious, and what a game it was, and the turnaround from the Resilience to fight back the Western Bulldogs in the second quarter, and then for Melbourne to fight back and go another step further, being I think it was 19 points down, late into the third quarter, to win by 74 is incredible. In they say some of the most devastating football that people have ever seen in that short amount of time. So hopefully it kept everyone pretty excited and gave us something to cheer for, especially in Melbourne. I know we've got some people from around the country, so big welcome here. Andrew and I together today. So so he's in here today. So we're sharing our seat today. So it's going to be a great session today. We've got Samantha Gash, ultra marathoner, World Vision ambassador in many projects she's done. We've got the CEO of World Vision, Daniel Wordsworth. We've got our resident Stefan Gazakis with some great work on the 3 phases of goals and goal setting and identity. Got Andrew Phillips beside me here, life after exit, and some of the great things he's been doing in a socially responsible way, which is a bit of our theme today, combining that with resilience. And Judd, of course, is going to get us with some practical skills on resilience today. So without further ado, I remember back in our Camp Australia business, we started, I think it was about 2006, and we never thought at all. We thought all about profit, make money. We made some, we lost some in about the first 15 years. Actually, probably lost a fair bit more until we got our model right. And then we went into a stage where I said to Andrew, it'd be really great to, just for social causes, to do some good things, which our mother drove us to do with a lot of her voluntary work. But it was also really good promotions for our business. And we had staff doing volunteer runs. We had a number of charities we supported. We allowed, I think, staff to do 2 days a week. They could go and work in a charity. We had big fundraisers, for example, in all our programs. We had about 800 schools doing our aftercare, and they all did programs for the Smith family. And it was great. And they'd do a dollar coin donation, and then we'd dollar match that and raise a lot of money. And they did things like Learning for Life, and kids dressing up in what they'd like to be when they grow up, and teachers also and the staff dressing up in their old school uniform. Some fitted pretty well, not so well some others, but it was always a bit of fun. But it always was about raising money and awareness, and that was for disadvantaged kids and providing resources for them to go to school. And of course, World Vision, we it's topical today. We built a couple of schools in Ethiopia early on, little tin shed schools, and all the kids in our aftercare made all the resources, the puzzles and the games and the books, and we shipped them across. So a great connection there with World Vision. So we'll get into it today, and a great warm welcome to Samantha Gash. Big fame, you've probably seen. Hi. Sam, and she's a star. Been on Survivor, done some awesome projects with World Vision, and is an ultra marathoner, done marathons of massive scale all around the world. And we've been privileged to work with her on a couple of things. And I wanted to start, Sam, by saying, why do you run? Like, I know you've told me this, but it's a good story. Why do you run? Why did you choose that?
I mean, I think if I go all the way back, I didn't used to run. I used to be very physically dormant as a kid. And I think, so much of your social credibility is built up on your abilities in sport, particularly in Australia. And so my inabilities in sport left me probably feeling a little bit isolated when I was in my younger years. And when I was kind of in my mid-20s, I just had a whole lot of things that I, like to-do list, bucket list, before I became a grown-up and started work. And one of them was to do a marathon. And when I ran the marathon, I always wish I could have like this romantic story of the marathon, that it was like amazing, and like I crossed the finishing line and I felt awesome. But I have the story that every single person who runs a marathon has. I hit 32 Ks, and I hit that like mental, physical wall in a pretty brutal way. And I was running with a girlfriend at the time, and she looked amazing, which really pissed me off. And she looked at me and she's just like, suck it up, princess. We've got 10K left to go. And I guess her determination and courage was something I kind of needed. And I remember I ducked in behind her. I was using her as a windbreak, but I literally looked down at her feet and I just followed every single footstep that she took, and I kind of mirrored it. And then I got to the finishing line and I went from feeling as the shittiest I'd felt to all of a sudden feeling like a rock star. And I couldn't help but think, oh, like a couple of K ago, I felt like I was a broken human being. And now I'm at the finishing line and I feel kind of fine. And it just made me think, how much does our mind and our bodies start to talk to each other, and in both elements start to tell you that you can't do something and place these limitations. So that was the start of my running. And it really, I never thought that I'd be running around the world, but I think you don't always need to know the vehicle of how you're going to do things. But if you're very clear on your purpose and what you care about, the mechanism and how you choose to achieve it can be quite an adventure for you to discover.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's an awesome story, and finding your passion. And I think those that have done those marathons, you feel that breakthrough, don't you? And you just know that, why the hell am I pushing myself through it? To exhilaration, like pain to exhilaration is amazing when you finish it. But I mean, your ultra marathons, I mean, just take us through quickly. Yeah, just quickly, the big ones you've done them all around the world. What are some of them?
In 2010, very close to my first marathon, I decided to run a 250-kilometer race in the driest desert in the earth. So it was the Atacama Desert in Chile. And that was really the turning point for me. Like, I kind of got hooked, not so much on the run, but what run teaches you about your mind and the people that you meet and the places that you go to. And so in one calendar year, I did 4 250-kilometer races in the hottest, coldest, driest and windiest deserts on earth. And they were 6 days each race, and you had to carry all the supplies that you needed in a pack on your back whilst you were running. So unfortunately, I'm not here in person with all of you, but if I was, you would realize, oh, she's very, very short. I'm under 5 foot, I weigh like 46 kilos. And so I was having about 25% of my body weight on my back at the beginning. So that was like my thing that I had to wrap my head around. But since then, really most of my big expeditions have been linked to social initiatives. So in 2014, I ran across South Africa's Freedom Trail, which was 2,000 kilometers over 32 days. And we were exploring the high cost of feminine hygiene products for women in sub-Saharan Africa, and the causal link of girls not being able to afford a feminine hygiene product and not being able to go to school. And then, Anthony, as you remember, in 2016, I ran from the west to the east of India over 77 days. And, the further I get on in that journey, the more the distance and the number of days and the metrics behind it don't matter. What matters is why we were doing what we were doing. And we were trying to explore the various barriers to quality education that children face across India. And as an ambassador of World Vision, I was able to collaborate with them, and we worked for 2 years before we even got to India to the start line. And I, had an opportunity with myself and my team and you, Anthony, and we went into some of these communities and started to understand in a small fraction some of those stories, and we tried to share them on a much bigger platform and help generate awareness and funds at the same time. So that was a bit of a meeting of the minds opportunity, because that's how we met. And since then we've done quite a few things together, including the relief run for India also this year.
Yeah, it is amazing. And when you go to that experience, and we're talking resilience, you're one of the most resilient people I've ever met. There's no doubt about that. And I saw it in the flesh. Like, I just remember we were sitting in Sam's, the team bus, and there, I remember we had Tom Phillips, my son, and we're both there, and he was sleeping in like a typical, late teenager. And Sam, right, we're getting up 4 a.m. and I'm going, right, I'm doing the early run, because in India, I think it was 42 degrees that day. And Sam was on about a 38th marathon. She'd run, 77 days, 3,800 kilometers across India, through the slums and the dirt and the dust. And anyway, I got out. I actually said to her, I'll try and get a half marathon. I think I actually pumped out 26 that day, which is good. But mate, it took about 3 days to recover, and I remember sleeping for about 3 hours after it. Tom came out and did the last 10 Ks, I think, with you, but that's when it was about 46 degrees, I reckon. You were still going.
It was.
That resilience is amazing. And I know, Sam, like a couple of the early ones, you're on drips and like early in that stage. Like, how did you get through that resilience-wise?
I can see Tom here. So
Yeah.
hi, Tom.
Hi.
Yes, you should have come earlier like your wise old father. It was I mean, yeah, it's hard. I think my secret weapon is that I have learned what happens when you can adapt, but the reality is, like, it takes time to adapt. And so a lot of people, I think everyone can adapt, but they just quit too quickly before that adaptation process actually happens. So in the first 2 weeks was the hardest for me. I mean, it was a 77-day project, and the first couple of days were okay. And then it just went downhill real quickly, because nothing can prepare you for the harshness of life and the challenges and the unpredictability, and particularly for people like myself, who are A-type personalities who love to plan to the nth degree. And as I said, I was prepping for this project for 2 years with World Vision. Like, we did trips over to India. We did immense logistical preparation. I did training. I trained in a hot yoga studio and put a treadmill there and would just run for hours with the temperature cranked up to 35, 36 degrees. But then you get there and you live and breathe it, and it's like 10 times harder than you could have even forecasted in your mind. And your body breaks down, and the more you mentally break down, everything else just falls apart. And so what I have learnt with time is, like, if your purpose of being there and your passion is so strong, you can remember, which I like to say, like, the Latin root of the word passion means patia, or is patia, which means to suffer. So when we're on the pathway to our passions, we have to remember that a part of that process is suffering. And suffering can be discomfort. Suffering can be like the barrier from the things that you do know to what you don't know. It's very clunky, it's embarrassing, it's awkward. But if you can ride out at that time, you do push the thresholds of what your capabilities are and what your understanding and awareness is. So, but by the time I'd seen you, which was maybe 40 days into the run, I was a lot more like a well-oiled machine. I had gone from being a broken, fragile person, and I actually became more robust the further that I went, which is so counterintuitive for a lot of people thinking, because you'd think by 2000 Ks, your body would be broken, you'd be too skinny, you'd be fragile. But I feel like I turned myself from a flimsy road bike to a really robust mountain bike by the end.
Wow, and were you robust? I mean, you didn't stop there. You came back and started on Survivor, had a baby.
I know.
Got the relief run going. I mean,
Yeah.
just a brief, just a couple of comments about Survivor and being a mum.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Survivor was so hard. I literally it was less than 4 months after coming back from India. And I think, so much of stuff is about preparation, but then it's about like surrendering. And I think you can become institutionalized to certain frameworks. And like the framework for India was like, we're a team, we have a unified mission, and shit's going to hit the fan, but as a team, we're going to rally to our mission. And I was indoctrinated to that process because that's what I needed to survive. Then I go into Survivor, and it's obviously very mission focused, but it's quite individually mission focused. Like, your goal is to outwit, outlast, outplay every single other person, and everyone there is for their own individual best interest. And I just couldn't flip my mindset to that quick enough. Oh, and I did fall in love with my now husband. So I got really distracted from the mission, and we got booted out, but no regrets. I mean, we have a beautiful family, and life looks different because I have a family. So Survivor was a game changer, but for a different reason.
And just to wind up, because we do have to keep the Zoom through. We could talk for hours, of course, but just the relief run. Tell us about that. And you really do have social causes at the forefront of your mind. I know you've been a lawyer, and social issues are really pertinent to you. So just a little bit for the audience about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who's listening to this conversation, like, there's two things that kind of connect all of us. We all have individual skill sets, and we all have the same amount of time. And I think when you can use all of your time and you kind of compile your complementary skill sets together, you can actually do quite incredible things. And it started back in 2020 when the bushfires were happening. And like everyone, in January, I just kept thinking, is there anything I can do? And I thought, like, I can run, I can bring people together for run, and I know how to fundraise, or at least I know how to talk about fundraising for something that's bigger than yourself. And so I had this idea of doing a virtual fun run before virtual runs were a thing. And in 12 days, we raised $1.2 million for the bushfire relief efforts, just through 20,000 people all around the world from 96 countries running between 5Ks to 21Ks. Really simple concept. And then similarly, like I think when something calls to you deeply, don't ignore it. You have a chance to do something. And I had that same feeling again when India was going through their second wave of the pandemic. So they were hit really hard with the second wave. Delta, obviously, they were really one of the first countries to have Delta really hard, and decided to do the same thing. I mean, I thought, you know, you can't run across a country and not know those stories and not think that there's something that you can do. And like, you're the same, like you felt the same thing when we connected. And, you know, in 3 weeks, we raised $350,000, hugely part to you and your family and the foundation. So I think many small footsteps, when they brought together behind the same cause, can go really far. And that's what I like to kind of put my energy and my, you know, I guess my own footsteps into as well.
It's been brilliant, Sam, and that collaboration, connection, yeah, those big C words, we just have the power to do such great things when we combine skills, like you said, and it's just, yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on today, and we'd love to keep chatting, but we'll get on to Daniel now, so the big boss. And, yeah, thanks a lot, Sam.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And a very warm welcome, Daniel Wordsworth, CEO of World Vision. After a calling to humanitarian work, Daniel abruptly resigned from the Navy and flew to India to meet Mother Teresa. Since then, he has committed 3 decades to working in some of the world's most difficult and dangerous places. He expected suffering and hardship. What he didn't expect was the avalanche of human goodness that he met everywhere. Daniel will share powerful lessons that he has learned. Welcome, Daniel.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Anthony. It was so good to finally get to see Sam. Sam's been really a remarkable ambassador for World Vision. So hi, Sam. Sorry we can't meet face to face. You raised this 350. Hi, good to see you. And it was a huge help for India. India was in crisis and you really stepped up. And thank you, Anthony. Good to see you there, Tom. And Andrew, I know you're just off to the side there. It's great to see you. And hi, everybody. I do want to speak to this issue of resilience. I've been the CEO of World Vision for 6 months, but I've done this kind of work for a long time, almost 30 years. So what's this kind of work? And in a way, I kind of think of myself as I've become over the years an expert in resilience. As Anthony said, I left the Navy actually after reading the Sermon on the Mount. That's the story where, you know, Jesus says, if you have 2 shirts, give one, blessed are the merciful. It's like the most famous thing that he talked about. But what I picked up on there was this idea that about living a life in service to the poor, the marginalized, those who are really in need. And so I've spent the last 30 years focused on that. So what it's meant for me is, for me, it's meant trying to go to the places around the world that are in the most need and then trying to do something in those environments. So I started my career in a place like Papua New Guinea. I've lived all over the world now. I've spent really the last 25 years in every major conflict, disaster, emergency, or large-scale movement of people. So I was in Afghanistan. I was one of the first aid workers in Afghanistan after 9/11. I was in Darfur in the Sudan. I've been to Congo and worked in Eastern Congo. I've been in most of the world's refugee camps. In it may be a surprise to you, actually, the largest refugee camp in the world is in Bangladesh, and it has a population currently of 565,000 people that live in over 200,000 bamboo dwellings. That's a refugee camp. And so what I've got to see over that 25 years is, I think what most people would think of as the scarcest places on earth and the places on earth where there's the most suffering. And in those spaces, you're trying to do good. So you're actually in, and I've spent the last 11 years as a chief executive officer of an organization that's working in those spaces, and now I do it within World Vision. And so you have often hundreds of staff that are out every single day working. One of the things that I used to say to new country, we have like country directors that work in a place like Congo. You'll have a person and a team on the ground in Congo working, or a team on the ground inside of Somalia or in Afghanistan. You may have hundreds. World Vision has 350 staff, for example, in Afghanistan right now. And one of my opening conversations when I talk to the leaders of those countries is, okay, we're about to get on a call. I assume that somewhere there is conflict breaking out. I assume that you have no electricity. I assume that the Wi-Fi has been spotty and been in and out for the last few days. I assume that one or two of your key staff have malaria. I assume that all of the things that can go wrong are currently going wrong. So the question now for us is, how do we overcome that? Where do we go from here? There's no point talking about all those bad things. Yeah? And so after going through that, and Anthony alluded to this, what I learned from that, one was, how do you run an organization that's resilient, that can withstand, in the last, you've seen it yourself in the last few months, when suddenly you have a crisis in Afghanistan, you have an explosion of COVID happening in not just India, we're actually seeing it now in Nepal, we're seeing it in Indonesia. There was at the same time an explosion and a movement of COVID within Papua New Guinea. So how do you respond to all of that? How do you overcome sanctions that the UN has inside of Afghanistan? What do you do when you have 350 staff in a place like Afghanistan and 200 of them are applying for visas and want to get out, but you have to stay there and actually work with communities and accomplish it? What do you do in the face of all of this? Yeah. Now, and so in the spirit of that, in the spirit of how do you speak to resilience in that environment, I just wanted to give you just a few insights after doing this for 25 years or so in those places. And that is, the first thing is, you have to be careful with the story that's in your head. The question that I get asked most frequently is, how do you, after so long working in these spots, how do you stay positive? How do you get up every morning and know, do stuff, right? How do you stay positive, essentially? And my answer is, I'm very, very careful with the story that plays inside my mind. The sentences, the words, the descriptions that I use, the way I think about the world, I'm very careful about it. But here's the good news. So at first, when I'm doing that, I'm like, no, I'm remembering. Be positive, think positively. But what happened when you sort of spend years trying to do that, I'm going to have to be positive, is what you begin realizing is the world changes because of that. That actually, at first you think it's like a defense mechanism. Like, I'm seeing these things, I don't want to see these things, I need to be positive. But actually what you discover over time is you keep your eyes open. There's no need to actually cover your eyes or your ears. That as you show up in the world in a positive way, actually the world changes around you. And what I've then noticed over 20 years as I've been walking in this, is I've noticed three things. And these three things are like the opposite of what I think most of us think. And the first thing that I learned was, actually the world is abundant. I think it's a fundamental question of the 21st century. Is there enough? Is there enough for everybody? And I can say, after being in what most people would say are all the places that don't have enough, there is enough. The world is abundant. There's much more than you think of. Every single thing that you can imagine. It exists everywhere. The challenge is not creating abundance, but it's actually unlocking it. So the world is better than you think. The second thing that I've observed, and I think the negative on this that we're hearing around the world, is that people can't be trusted, that people are essentially bad, that people, if they're given a chance, they'll come to your country and steal from you. And it's just not true. What I have observed, and Anthony talked to this, is I have seen nothing but a tsunami of goodness for 25 years. That in every environment that I go to, are there evil people? Yes. Do terrible things happen to people? Yes. Do people do terrible things to people? Yes. But what I've seen is an overwhelming number of people in those same environments doing good. And the other thing that I've learned is that actually what can transform that space is what you choose to believe about the people that you're meeting with. What I've noticed about human beings is if you think that a human being is good and noble and idealistic and wants to do great in the world, they'll go to enormous lengths to do that. Converse is also true. We've seen this in the United States for the last 10 years. If you think the world is small, mean, nasty, and if you think people are small, mean, and nasty, they'll go to great lengths to be that. But I choose to believe the opposite. People are good. And the third thing that I've come to see that is, even in the places that seem like they're the most impossible to change, that actually individuals working together can do huge amounts of good in the world. That actually you can change things. You really can change things. So then I just say so I don't just close my eyes and whisper positive things to myself. I now know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is more than enough in the world. We just have to unlock it. That people all over the world are deeply good. And that if we approach them that way, that actually unlocks that goodness. And thirdly, when we all come together, we can produce amazing change. The last thing that I would say to that, if I'm talking to people who are young, starting businesses, entrepreneurs, and Anthony reflects on this, is like when he got started, it was about profit, and it took him some years to realize that you can actually do amazing things with that, those resources that you have. And yet what you're seeing in the sort of millennial generation is people start their work knowing that they should be doing good in the world. And I would just say this is another key insight. The gift is to the giver. You don't have to say, I'm going to live a great life, and then at some point I'm going to start giving back, right? I think it's going to be a miserable experience. It works the opposite way. As you live a life of giving, you get it. You get it. It's just remarkable how it works. It's really true. Yeah, as you pour out of your life, things pour into your life, and that you shouldn't wait. You only ever are what you are today. So be it now. Yeah, be it now. If you only have, and do I have like a minute left, Anthony? Or have I run out of time? I wasn't trying. I'll just say this. When you look at the world and it seems impossible and it seems complicated and it seems like there are all these terrible things, what I can say is this: there are millions of us. There are millions of people like Anthony, like Sam, like Andrew. There are millions of people who wake up every day doing good. All we're asking is that everybody just joins together. That's how the tsunami of goodness happens. If you only have $500, pour that out. If you only have an hour of time in a month, give that. And you build up momentum over time, and it becomes a fundamental part of who you are. And that act of giving and not making it about yourself is the single greatest act you can have to be a resilient person and create a resilient business. So I might hand it back.
That was brilliant, Daniel. I could listen, as we've spoken before, for more and more minutes and hours about that. I think that's, it's realizing through business, as we did, that, you know, profit is important, but I'm really energized by a lot of young people I mentor and deal with that are thinking of social causes first. And I wish I'd done that earlier, but definitely the greater happiness you can get is that giving, that service to others, and especially service to those that are in suffering. That's been my experience also, traveling to all the continents and to some very poor areas around the world. And I think that's when you're starting your business on services and products, thinking about how you can make that change and that difference. And as you said, a tsunami of goodness, you know, how can we collaborate together, connect together for the greater good? And I'm a bit the same. I think there's good in every human, even the criminals, and there is good. We're born with some good, and it's about, you know, finding it, keeping it, joining it, and expanding it. So fantastic. And thank you so much for coming on, Daniel. I really appreciate your time today. It's been great.
Great to meet you.
We're going to throw straight now to the legend, Stefan Kazakis. He's got some great business tips for us today.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, and it's so humbling to hear, I guess, Daniel and Samantha share the thing, and I just feel it's befitting. I think it's befitting that everyone that's associated in this moment, right now, as we are listening and absorbing what we've just listened to, Let's go to the chat, and I'll give everyone 30 seconds. Get into the chat and just put a reference point, a reflection point. Where are you right now as it relates to what we were just abundantly given the opportunity to listen and absorb and reflect, and ultimately, how's that playing out for you right now? So I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds, a moment of silence in honour of what we just were privileged to listen to. In the chat, everybody, let's put our bits and pieces into the chat. Again, this is not questions. This is just let's get engaged in the chat. So I guess as we get again engagement in the chat, we need to see engagement. I mean, that is, we've got royalty as it relates to philanthropy. We have royalty as it relates to the giving back. And what I'm here to do, and it's interesting, you know, life works in certain ways. And this is where I go here today, you know, the 3 phases of goals in life. And as Daniel and Samantha so eloquently shared, it's not age and or experience dependent. There is no time in life where you say, this is the time. There is no such thing as a stage that says, I am ready for that. It is always in the beholder, the individual, the posse, the movement, the community that ultimately creates, as we just heard, the tsunami of abundance. What I've come to learn and be a student and continue to be a student of, and I'm in a privileged place where, you know, the Business Benchmark Group since 2005 gives me a platform to give back, continue to be at the best I can be, continue to lead a movement, a community, and ultimately help people who have a choice. Do they want to be the best electrician in their business or the best owner of an electrical contracting business, the best reseller and distributor of infrared saunas in Australia, or the best owner of a far infrared company that's going to conquer the world? So there are 3 phases of goals in life, and these are non-age and or experience dependent. So I want to eliminate that bias or prejudice that we have and or the anchor that holds us back. The first phase is always, what are we moving away from? What are we not happy about? What is it that we're truly needing to change and or create? Better habits, better disciplines. And if we reflect on last week's sharing, young Alex Tyson, who as a 24-year-old took over his family business. That was a very old business, running an old way of doing business, and they were very, very deep in the red. In other words, there was no money. And their motto was live day to day, week to week, and they had a $2.5 million business that was losing money every year. And Alex puts his hand up, he reaches out, seeks a mentor, exactly as I did at the age of 24, a business mentor, and joins a program, a structured program, so that he can move away from what was an unhealthy, unfulfilling, and not something he wanted to be a part of. So he needed to go at the age of 24 in moving away. He made a decision about that. He needed to get away from debt and needing overdrafts and having a dysfunctional team. And 3, 4, 5 years later, he's a client of the Business Benchmark Group, has been for over 4 years, will continue to be for the next 15 years. And he's now moving towards, because he made a decision at the tender age of 24. He was not okay with that. And now where he is, he's running a multi-million-dollar business that delivers multi-million dollars in profit, that is serving multi-millions of people throughout Australia, the world. And he's going to continue building that. And as he gets better at that, he's going to truly do the best work he'll ever do, which is giving back. The bit and piece as it relates to health and wellness for Alex at iHealth Saunas is not about the money. The money comes when you are truly invested as we just heard, in abundance. And it takes a very, very important step to move away. It takes courage to move away from what is not working from you. It takes courage. It takes courage. It takes surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you, endorse you, give you the wind within your wings to fly, to take the game on, to take the business on, to give you a better chance at a better quality of life, so that as you do that, you become a believer. You have moved to what we would call a business benchmark group, from the majority to the minority. And therefore, when you're moving to, because you can, towards things, because you believe now you're in the best position ever to give back. And if you think about this, as Daniel so rightly shared, if you can give $500, if you can give 1 hour, no one judges what you give. However, as you move towards the higher levels of life, the better and the more predictable levels of life, because you made that choice, you don't no longer turn up to the village and give a bike. That's an interesting bike. However, that's a bike. To the kid in the village, you give them the container of bikes, and that's the difference. And abundance is real. And for everyone here that is running a business, thinking of running a business, is doing the best that you can within a career where you make an impact, you are contributing and you're adding value, what is it that you truly need to be moving away from? And ultimately put yourself in the best position. Why? Because you can, to work, to move towards. And by doing that, what is the impact? So if we go back to session 1 in the Super September series 3-4 weeks ago, I shared the importance of goal setting, the importance of goal setting across your health, your relationships, your business, your wealth, your ability to have philanthropy at a higher level. And it makes no difference, no judgment, because it's a journey. Philanthropy and or toys experience, no judgment. It's always your choice what you get to do. So a business benchmark group, just to put it out there, our destiny statement, since 2005 this business started, and we work with about 200 or so business owners throughout Australia and New Zealand, and Alex from iHealth Saunas is the average. There's nothing out of the blue for what's happened to Alex for what we do here. Why? Because we are truly committed to helping people be better. By 2030, we will be serving 4,000 trades and construction-based clients globally. The impacts, this is so important that you know the impact of where you're going, so that it helps you move towards something that's bigger, greater, way bigger than you ever will be as an individual, because it's never about you, the individual. You just choose to be the leader and or not. 4,000 businesses that employ on average 10 full-time employees, that have on average 10 suppliers each, and or are serving on average 10 customers each, that have on average 10 family and or friends, loved ones. Because 40 plus million humans on earth being influenced directly and indirectly within the business benchmark group way. That is abundance. That is a movement. It's not about me. I just chose for that to be the destination. And its impact, if you're into that, that's one piece of impact. 4,000 businesses that invest $35,000 per annum on personal business growth, development, represents a business that's doing $150 million a year in annualized income. That puts us as a movement, as a business, in the top 1% businesses in the world to do what we do at Business Benchmark Group. And for those who want brightness of future, the team of the future that I have yet to meet, the team of the current that can truly lead anywhere in the world, one headquarter in Australia, 5 satellite offices throughout the world, a total team size of 119, 3 different points of impact, depending on who you are and where you are and what it means for you. You choose which one it is for you as it relates to the Business Benchmark Group. That is the power from moving away from, as I did with my family business, and moving towards and created a benchmark business for which we sold. And then I started this business in 2005 to help business owners understand you can have dinner with your children tonight. You can be at Little Johnny and Little Samantha's netball and AFL Oz kick on the weekend. Your business can't consume you. It's your choice what you're moving away from to ultimately give you the best platform to go towards, and ultimately be in that privileged position to give back at grander levels, bigger levels. That's me, Anthony. Thank you. Over to you, Andrew.
Absolutely brilliant, Stefan. Thanks so much again for that inspiring work, and I'm sure the participants today have taken a lot from that business. And I really want to thank Sam and Daniel and for organising such inspirational speakers. I think about resilience, and a lot of the questions I've been asked in the last 6 to 12 months, particularly through COVID, and many of the people on the calls today have either been in startup businesses, like a couple of our guest speakers earlier in the last couple of weeks, up to entrepreneurs that are at serious stages of wealth creation and looking to, well, what is life after exit? And I guess when I think about resilience, we're building that up through every stage. Only in retrospect, where I look back at our startup, when we had rapid growth, when we had to significantly add value, and even towards exit and life right down to the last weeks of running our business, we were building resilience the whole time and we didn't know it. And Daniel, I think a lot resonated with me when I read Humankind, and I'd implore everyone on this call today to look up the book by Rutger Bregman on humankind, because what Daniel was talking about today, there is abundance, there is kindness and humanity. And it really looked at a lot of tragedies around the world and looked at the kindness that is all amongst us. And I think what we're trying to do, in fact, my wife and I, which I'll share in a moment, in our new venture, is look at how can we bring kindness and growth to others. So I'll share my screen and just go through a little bit of summary of last week. All right. And as we said, I do ask each of the participants on the call, if you get time, to go back and look at the sessions we've done in session 1.0 and this year in the startup, the growth, the value add and the exit. We've talked about preparation, the campaign and reflections. And today, briefly, I'm going to talk about the post-exit and the new chapter. I know a lot of people, including myself, is what the hell am I going to do after busying myself with one thing for 30 years? Some of the key points, experience and actions that I know I've learned from and have enacted. We talked about preparing to sell, putting the business hygienes together, build systems for sustainability. Self-position of strength was a word that of advice we had from David Smorgan in some sessions we did with him. Never sell when the business is in strife. Go through the campaign, making sure you create a competitive process. Communication to who and when. Understand your value, not just your numbers, but what you're going to add to another business if you're selling into them. Trusting the process, and it's never over until it's finished. What will you do after exit? What are your purpose and passion statements? Do you know them, or are you going to create new ones? The greatest relief for me was time and choice, not having to sell myself every day, and to be able to think about some other things, looking at estate planning, wealth creation, looking at what will you do with the capital? How will you look after your family and beyond? And for me, working towards a journey to impact. How can we improve what we're doing for others and the world? And then, of course, the responsibility to give back. We felt a deep responsibility to give back, setting up our path, a private ancillary fund called the Grow Corp Foundation. And Anthony and I transitioned into where we are now, our TCAF, the Camp Australia Foundation, to the Phillips Brothers Foundation, which is obviously part of this seminar series. Helping kids shine, you'll see, is a tagline for the Phillips Brothers Foundation. And these are the two things I'm doing with my time. Giving back. Phillips Brothers Foundation works with primary children in disadvantaged areas, and we focus on inclusion, empowerment, environment, physical and mental and social. Our partnerships across Australia and internationally with Common Ground, Indigenous storytelling, Australian Schools Plus, fair education, helping children attend school and get through to the end of school, Public Education Foundation, and Plan International, two wonderful programs, Girls Empowerment and Inclusion Fund, and Let's Play, a program similar to the ABC's Play School in the Pacific, developing on early childhood programs. Oops. The other program that my wife and I set up is called Grow Corp, and through empathy and empowerment, we're looking to create a more equal and sustainable future. The 6 pillars of our work: investment, farming, advisory, foundation, connection, and build. And just quickly on each of them: impact investing, some of the areas we're working at the moment: small investments, Saltwater Club, an Indigenous tourism program out of Queensland; Regen Ventures, startup IT, regenerating the planet; Giant Leap, a venture capital fund; Your Food Collective, which I think some of our entrepreneurs are on this call; ENOSI, a renewable energy tracing program; and 4 purpose partners looking at social inclusion; regenerative farming social enterprise, creating partnerships with young farmers; kind carbon neutral food, meat, eggs, fruit and veg; and regenerate carbon in soil through grazing biodiversity farming practices. Advisory, where I'm spending most of my time, advising entrepreneurs and social enterprises in mentoring and advisory board roles. We're dedicated to helping people grow their enterprise from startup to exit via holistic values, culture development, assisting strategic direction and philanthropic thought planning through positive impact on the world. Our foundation aims to reduce inequality for a more sustainable world, focusing on the environment and education, and a few of our partnerships there. And last couple, connection, which is part of what this business seminar series is, connecting people. Through that network, we support businesses in merger and acquisition, legal, accounting, finance, sales, marketing, information technology, operations and HR, and build, where GrowCo began. With a couple of property developments, we decided to give the profits to charity, and our foundation began that way. Today, we're developing renewable energy projects and providing social housing for disadvantaged women and children. And lastly, as I've sort of just explained, some of the projects underway: regenerative agriculture, affordable housing, food systems, and renewable energy. Thanks so much, everyone, for today, and obviously the last 5 weeks. We've got another big week next week, and more than happy to share with you anytime some of my insights, and I'll hand to Judd.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, I'm going to have to be really quick, even faster than normal. I've got about 5 minutes to tell you a lot. So I'm going to really first start by saying thank you so much, Sam. Thank you, Daniel. That was brilliant. You two basically have explained a lot of what I do and what I believe in your actions, and that's what it's all about. Today, I'm really going to try and talk about how to practically transform yourself to become a resilient person. Now, I've got about 5 minutes to do it, so no pressure. The first thing is, as Sam has demonstrated and Daniel demonstrated, is plan to be brilliant. All right? From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night, plan to be brilliant. Execute, practice, train, build capacity so you can benefit not just yourself, but those around you, your direct community and your wider community. And this is the whole point that we get together to do these presentations. The point is, the more capacity you have, the more powerful you are, the fitter you are as a person, the more positive effect you can pass on to others. If we multiply the ability of each person to be a brilliant version of themselves, we can create, as Daniel was saying, a movement. The whole point is, the better we are at being resilient ourselves, the more positive we can attack and invest in our lives, and the better, more powerful effect we can have on the totality of us all. We can create a culture. So yes, be concerned with your own health, but because you want to be something that's of value to society. So from the moment you wake up in the morning, attend to the details. Focus on your posture, focus on hydration, focus on the way you breathe. Don't just plan for the big things. Take care of the little bits, all the 1%ers. Make sure that your diet is nutrition first, because good nutrition gives you that stable capacity to then perform. It gives you base resilience. Hydration, good breath control, all give you that platform. So like Sam, you can call on your body to deliver when you need it. Mind-body integration is about faith. It's about a faith in yourself, knowing that your body can do what you need or ask it to do. And a body's faith in your mind that it's not going to punish it or ask it something that's not acceptable or not fair. So many of the people I train, so many of the people I help, it's really about, as Daniel was saying, the story, the narrative. You've got to train yourself to accomplish your goals. There's no point developing goals that are so far beyond your living experience, your training, so far beyond your ability, they're just going to create more stress, more disappointment. So the whole thing is create a plan, as Anthony has said for years. Planning is everything. Those plans have to be realistic. Sleep so you get the rest you need. Yeah? Listen to others so you can hear what's needed. Exercise so you've got the strength of body and mind to accomplish the tasks that you put before you, to develop the resilience that you need to cope with the challenges that life is going to pass your way. The whole point about resilience is having the capacity to be in flow, to be the best version of yourself despite what challenges come your way, because they are going to come. It's not about avoiding, it's about facing, overcoming, dealing with. If we all think back a moment, we think back to the most important memories that we've got, they're all around challenge. Sam was demonstrating her ultra marathons on purpose. She's creating an intense turbocharged experience for growth. Her example, Daniel's example, getting out there, spreading the word, creating capacity, it's all about giving themselves and the world challenge to grow and then responding and growing. And that's success. The business that we talked about earlier about being yourself is all about success. So instead of focusing on profit, which was mentioned, instead of worrying about the bottom line all the time, focus on positive influence, focus on value adding, and then success will come. Okay, so make sure, again, just in summarizing, make sure you focus on the breath. All right, we've talked about that. Next week, we'll go into more detail. If you want to ask questions, I'll answer it. Focus on your diet. Make sure it's pretty basic, really. Make sure you're hydrated every day. Make sure you're flexible. Make sure you're strong. Make sure you're listening and in flow. And really plan to succeed. Don't ignore what you need to do. And then remember every now and again, every day, do what you need to do and become, like Sam was with her preparation, a little methodical. Sometimes a little OCD goes a long way. Yeah, so it's about faith. Faith in your systems, faith in yourself. Plan, prepare, train to succeed. Okay, Anth, we've got like 3 or 4 minutes to answer some questions. I better jump out.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Judd. And yeah, reinforcing a few things from our theme today. I think that was fantastic, Stefan, with the 3 phases of goals. It's interesting, isn't it? Taking courage, watching SAS. I just can't get enough of it. But a lot of it is facing those fears, isn't it? And stepping up to the plate, turning up, facing that challenge. And we had plenty of those in business. But really getting a clear mind, so looking after yourself and working through those tough challenges. Tim Donahue often says to us, there's problems in every business, but it's about the solutions and the team that can help with that solution, not just individuals, a group that can actually come up with the best way forward. And I think the point there, Stefan, you also said, I think the network, your expansion of networks, that's what grows abundance. That word's come up a bit today, and abundance can be probably seen as the best things in life and on earth, but it's not really, I suppose, to us, having been in business and made profit abundance or money abundance, it definitely doesn't equal life happiness and what you do to, be purposeful in your life here. And so hence our speakers today, Daniel and Sam, been terrific in terms of that. With Andrew, I know with Andrew for sure, he was the profit driver of our business. Without him, we wouldn't be sitting here today as twins now. I was very much about the social outcomes and the kids being healthy and fit and doing their sports and activities and getting good care in our business. But at the end of the day, by making our business successful, we're able to use that abundance to do good and not just feeling obliged, actually feeling deep in our heart that it's something you actually want to do, because that is more the purpose of life. It's not just about making money. And I think impact's the other thing. Abundance is about impact. What do you do with your passions, your expertise, your skills that you've gained over so many years in business and life? Like what can you do to impact others? I think that's the key, and it's the reason I coach today. When I choose to do anything I do, I still coach kids, which is a full circle about what started our business, because I feel passionate. I feel like I can make a difference. There's value in it. It helps other people, and I see the joy in others' success, through some input. So I think that shone through in what Andrew's doing also with, really thinking through what he can do to impact socially and in housing for people, in all those great things he's done with YGAP and travelling overseas to a number of projects too, to look at socially what enterprises could do. And I know he's got a big passion about that. And Judd, again, it was interesting what Simon Goodwood, the Melbourne coach, said. I don't know if you were listening to him this week, but he said individual brilliance, he kept saying. And it was in terms of being brilliant in your role. I kept taking notes being a coach, and it was just interesting because, some players had to sacrifice and play different roles, but until they all played their role to individual brilliance and collectively respected that and were to sacrifice whatever it was for the good of the greater whole, was when Melbourne, 57 years later, got their ultimate success. And I just think it is interesting. It's great listening to leaders and coaches and people who've taken the journey and had as Sam said, the suffering, and Daniel mentioned, and then Judd and Andrew, the challenges, because that's what creates growth. And when you grow, you feel joy. And when you feel joy, that's success, really. It's not money. It's the joy you have as a human, I think. And I think that was really well brought through in every speaker today. It was just terrific. And I hope you can take it into your business, because I think if you're coming from the right place with your business, you will drive your profit. There's no doubt if you get these sort of things. And I wish I knew them a lot earlier. And it was probably when we gained this a little bit later in our business, we actually started getting clear and made really good decisions, and away we went. So thank you again to everyone. It's been awesome. We've got a few. We're happy to hold it open for a few more minutes today. Stefan's verified that. He's given us the big nod there. So if there are any questions, and certainly we've got Daniel still on the line. I know Sam's still there, actually, which is amazing. Please fire away. We've got a couple here. Would love to know Daniel and Sam's most eye-opening experiences, biggest life-changing experiences.
Sam, why don't you jump in?
I think you kick us off, Daniel.
Yeah, go for it, Daniel.
Okay, well, that's a hard one. It's a hard one. I find it easier to answer the second question there, but I tried to sum it up in a way. What has been the biggest eye-opening thing for me is the accumulated effect of going through all of these things. Yeah. And that is the bit, and I talk about this, and I was talking about it with you guys, which is I was totally expecting to find a world that was scarce, that was full of suffering, and that was largely impossible to fix. You'd be like a dike, that story of the kid that puts his finger in the dike. That's what I thought it would be. And it just is not that. So maybe over to you, Sam, you're here.
So Sam, the question is, what is in your journey in life? What's been one of the most impactful? I guess what made impact. I mean, you've shared why you got into the running, and that was amazing. However, and how that rolled into something truly amazing. But what in your journey has, as you reflect, is one of those things that you just go, wow, that was a moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably partnering with World Vision back in 2015 in terms of it's kind of really changed the course of the next couple of years, and also the way in which I choose to do social impact projects. I think before 2015, a lot of the projects I did, I might be the center point, and they were all being done for a solid initiative. But I was the focal point, and if you stepped me out of the project, maybe it wouldn't exist. And the further I've gone along, particularly with World Vision and the people that I've met through that organisation, I've tried to create sustainable projects that if I'm out, it still flourishes. And it came to life during the relief run this year when I was caught in the Dandenong Ranges storm. Literally the day before the relief run was meant to happen, I had no electricity, our house kind of, well, as Anthony knows, things really fell apart and I had no comms, and we had a whole campaign had to roll out. And it was very grateful that I felt that I could trust the people and I wasn't the face behind the project, and it could flourish completely independently. And I think being able to rely on strong teams and realize that you don't need to be able to do everything is actually empowering.
How did you deal with that, again, that moment of, holy moly, I'm helpless here, but I've got to have blind trust in the team to carry the relay baton all the way through? How was that as a moment? If you can just capture that moment, how did that feel?
Oh yeah, I remember I was up on the mountain and I had Channel 9 calling me to do an interview, and it was the first time I was driving through the hills trying to get back to my house. It was a 5K drive, and it took me 5 hours to go 5Ks because the streets, and I was trying to do this interview. It was so bad. And I was like, I can't focus on this right now. I need to leave you with my team to deal with this properly. And I probably am someone that likes to know what's happening with every element. But when you have great people, you don't need to worry about that. You can come back to them later and get a recap. And I think building teams, building strong, diverse, skilled people in your team, where you continually clarify why you're doing what you're doing and empower people to do their individual roles. It's actually incredibly freeing, the whole thing of structure, to have freedom. And you don't need to be everything.
It's an interesting prize, isn't it? To work so hard and be committed to structure, and the prize is freedom. Really interesting. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Daniel, from your perspective, and I'm conscious of time, I want to go to that very important question. I'll come to you next, Sam. What do you see happening as you see it from a global at a very challenging level? What do you see happening in a post-COVID world? I think we've got to be speaking post-COVID now. What do you see as it relates to global? How does this thing play out over the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think about it as a with COVID world. Here's what I would say about all of this stuff, and I think it's key for resilience. I've just had the advantage of knowing this all the way along, is no one has a clue what's going to happen. Yep. No one's had a clue what's going to happen since we globalized, because it's now impossible to predict what one thing will lead to. It's now nobody knew about the financial crisis. Nobody predicted the Arab Spring. Nobody could even guess that Donald Trump would be elected. No one saw the pandemic. No one has a clue what is going on around the world. Anything could happen in 2 years. There was a folk from a business school in Boston said, your ability to plan for the future is not based on your ability to forecast, because you are making it up. Yep. Whatever you forecast, you've made it up. It is based on your ability to navigate. Yep. The key for the 21st century is your ability to navigate. In other words, it is no longer about what's happening around you. It is all about how resilient you are, your team is, your business is, and it has to be fit for purpose to handle anything that can happen. I've had the advantage in that in my world, your staff could be kidnapped tomorrow. Your country could fall into a conflict or a disaster. You could go in. I'm used to never having any external control. I only have internal control. Yeah. What we've all realized now is that no one had any control over anything externally. Yeah. So that's the way I would flip it. I don't even think about what's going to happen in 2 years. I just build resilience internally.
And I think the key thing there, Daniel, which is brilliant, is what can you control? And how does that help you get through from whatever you're in right now to the next, whatever the next is? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is it next year? Regardless, you're next, and what are you in control of? Beautiful. Sam, from your perspective, what do you see as it relates to the question from the crowd here today in COVID, post-COVID? What do you see?
In terms of how we move forward?
Or what do you see as in a world that's going to be post-COVID?
I don't know. I don't have a forecasting ability, but I do prescribe to the belief of that we all have the capabilities of creating the next best plan. And I think the majority of people who are listening to this are probably planners, and they like to dream and they like to forecast and they love to have certainty. And I think you can't unwire that in people, and that's important. So do it. But then in every single moment, realize the greater question is, okay, so what's the next best plan for this if that original plan that I created is no longer relevant? And I think that's what creates great leaders, to be responsive to the people and the issues that are relevant at any one moment.
If I can put this in the space, what I see is the post, because it's an event and the event happened, it is happening. What I see, if I can put it in the space for just some conversation, I think we're becoming people-centric. I feel the connection, the connectivity, the elevation of people doing good for people has just gone up a whole new level.
Yeah.
A whole new level. And I just see the impact of that is tenfold as a result of the drama.
And I think it's because there's been a shared experience, even on a different level. And I think, you know, people are more likely to support small business, and like it's the hour of small business to promote and to talk about your suffering in a way to be able to connect to other people as well. Yeah, I think people are more people-centric, even though they've experienced probably more hardship than they normally would have. It's unifying in a way.
Can I just jump in for a second? Sam, what you said, and Daniel, so well, you're really talking about, I suppose, the capacity we have each as a person to focus on, as I said in that little statement I said before, the little things, making sure that you focus on what you're doing, focus on building your capacity. So in the end, when something does eventuate, as you were saying, Daniel, we're ready for it, at least prepared the best we can be. What's always difficult is when retrospectively you look back and say, I wish I had have done this. I wish I had have prepared a bit more. Now, as you're saying, we don't know what's going to come tomorrow, but if you can maintain the best version of now, of today, it's going to put you in the best stead no matter what happens. And really, COVID's the great equalizer. We're all affected by it. No one can pay to be, immune to it, really. So it's really down now to what you do each day and maintaining your own potential,
Very wise words. I think if anyone's got another last comment, let's go for it. Otherwise, I think we've utilised the lunch break of many people there. Hopefully we've got some amazing feedback, and it's been very inspiring. Sam, awesome to just catch up again, and thanks for staying on, right to the end there. And Daniel, just amazing. Stefan, as usual, some great questions. He's like that hard-hitting reporter, and he's Stefan at the end. He's just going to extract what he needs out the end there. So he's good like that. And Judd, great wisdom again. And look, Andrew and I have loved bringing the series together. We're going to have at least one more session next week, which will be really over to the participants to really, if you can put forward to Rob Steppen and the Business Benchmark Group here, any questions, issues, problems, things that we can jointly solve for you and your business. So it's totally about you guys next week. So we're going to have a pretty open panel discussion and get some people online face to face so we can see you and try and help you a bit. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone.